Welcome to Real Bass Lessons. Today we're going to work on some jazz. Jazz improvisation, solo playing over jazz tunes. Now, one of the most challenging things about learning to play jazz is that it takes some background. If you can just jam away and it sounds great, cool, you don't need any lessons. But many of us have to study real hard to get the sound and the feel of jazz in our fingers, in our ears, before we can actually, play jazz. Now, some people get hung up on the chord scale method and the whole theory behind it. Quite frankly, I don't think you need to start that way at all. That ends up being a justification as opposed to a motivation most of the time. What I want to do is I want to try to give you a little methodology for listening and for working on some sounds and learning some sounds that work over chord changes. I heard a clinician one time say, he said, man, I just could never in my lifetime, master learning all those chord changes and, keeping up the chords and have to think about a different chord change every time. I know, that's tough. I spent some time doing that too. And there are people who get real good at it. But if we can isolate some pitches, some rhythms, and work on those over sounds, particularly 2-5-1, sounds like that are common to jazz, then those will become part of our language. Just like a funk language or a slap language, we learn some jazz language. And the ultimate methodology or study of jazz language is studying the great players. But again, that can be really daunting because it's so difficult if you say, hi, I want to learn to play like Paul Chambers. Well, that sometimes takes a while. Let's start with what we need to do on the instrument. You must have a working knowledge, and I mean working physical knowledge, of the fingerboard. For some of you, this lesson may be too advanced. Let me back up and say this. If you're looking for a trick or some more information or a cool little thing to help you play jazz, this is not going to get it. The fundamentals must be learned. So again, we need to have a good working knowledge of the fingerboard. What do I mean by that? Well, we need to know where all the notes are. We can't just go, what's that chord? Oh, I don't know what note that is. No, that's an A flat. And I've made lots of lessons that require that. By the way, I had a roommate once who was teaching trombone lessons. He put some signs up in the local music store, and a student called, and I took the message. He said, and be sure and tell him that I don't really want to waste time on all those basics. I just want to get into jazz. I wrote it down. It doesn't work that way. We need to learn the chords, meaning what are the chords? We need to be able to play root, third, and fifth of all chords. How about root, third, fifth, and seventh if we're going to play jazz? Major chords, minor chords, dominant chords. There's a bunch of others, but we need to start with that. So you need to get involved in a real good methodology for learning your instrument and learning the sounds of chord changes. Then, let's just start by learning those things in our ears too. What I mean by that is let's listen to some sounds, let's listen to a song and start figuring out what it is. I think the song I'd like to work with today is Lady Bird. I'm going to play just a little simple version of it so you can hear it. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Here it is again. just me playing the chord changes, root, a little bit of third or seventh up here, and then of course I was singing that melody. Not real good, I know. But all you have to do is get the sounds in your ears. Singing it, the quality of singing isn't important. More important is, do you have that sound in your ear? So what let's do to start with, or what I'm going to tell you need to do. By the way, if you were sitting in front of me and you were going to take some lessons, by the way, I don't just teach one lesson. It doesn't work. And you were going to say, I want to learn to play jazz. Well, we'd spend about 3 or 4 weeks just learning the chord changes, learning the roots, learning the thirds, learning the third roots and fifths, learning where they add in different places on the instrument. So you're going to have to go out that any way you can. I don't recommend you get a book. Visually, why should we learn something visually that we want to work with, perform, play with our ear? And I've had guys say, I've taught things that physically you can see right here, and guys say, well, Jim, if you just put the music up, I could do it much quicker. Well, the goal is not quick. We don't need any tab. We don't need notation. There are places for those, but learning jazz is not one of them. We need to work on our ear. So I want to teach you the chord changes. Real simple, real short. You may not have them, but you can work on them. C, F, B flat, C, B flat, E flat, A flat, A, D, D, G, C, E flat, A flat, D flat, C. Now I know you probably didn't memorize them that quick, but do it. Just stop this little video right here and memorize that sucker. Just repeat it over and over and over. Now let's pretend that you have that sound in your ear, and let's start talking about some soloing. By the way, we just made a quantum leap. That stuff I just told you to do to learn that and get that in your ear and learn thirds and fifths and sevenths, that might take you a few hours or a few weeks. And if you're not willing to go through that step, you're just not going to become a good jazz player. Now, there's always exceptions, I know. But if you're watching this, you're probably not one of those, like me. So get to work on learning the chords, the sounds to any song. And of course, you should learn the melody too. But let's work on the solo right now, not the melody. Where I want to start is by thinking about and talking about what many people call guide tones. But I want to move a little bit beyond that. Maybe even, I don't say simpler, but maybe a little more direct approach. If I was playing those chords, well, look at this note here. There's the third. Here's the next chord. There's the seventh of that chord, but look how close it is. And then here's the next chord. So we could do a little solo going. Sure, that's called voice leading. That's guide tones. That's like playing through the changes as opposed to C, F, B flat. No, we made a little line that went through those. Let me do it again. Sure. Let's do another slow motion version of that. Let's go up here. Cool. I just took this little note here, and then I listened to that and I went, that sounds good. What about this one? No? Ah, that sounds like the chord change. That sounds like the chord change. And I went, no. Oh, I could have gone back here. So now I'm going to put a little play along on that has this root and the chord changes going by, and I'm just going to play around with some little voice leading. Not necessarily just the thirds and sevenths of the chords. I'm just going to pick a pitch and go up or go down, and I'm just going to let my ear tell me what sounds good. By the way, jazz is not infinite. The language and the methodology. People sometimes feel like, oh, it's going to take forever. Well, it can take forever to become a better and better and better player, but we can learn some great sounds that our ears like just by isolating them. And your ear will tell you if it sounds good or bad or ugly. And as you develop your ears and listen to more jazz, some of those things which you might have thought down the road were a little bit wrong, they might just be a cool tension that you go, oh, that kind of sounds cool because it rubs and then it releases. Let's do that right now. Let me get my little play along going here, okay? Oh, a little click here. Here we go. How about this one? How about this? I know. I took off there doing a couple other things. Oh, this thing keeps coming back up. Excuse me. There we go. So once I get some sounds I like, and maybe I like this one. You say, well, how do I make music out of it? Well, let's start with rhythm. Where do I get those rhythms? From listening to jazz. They're not just out of thin air, but they're out of my ear and the stuff I've listened to. So you need to be listening to real good jazz. I mean, the real stuff. Sometimes it's hard to decide what that is. Just ask. And then you say, well, what are those other notes, Jim? Well, 2 or 3 possibilities here. Actually, there's lots of possibilities. But a couple of possibilities are, if we like this note, let's just see what the ones beside it sound like. Let's do that. Let's listen to that. That might have been a little bit too much tension for your ear. So then here we might want to figure out which ones are good, or we can also use our knowledge of the chords. If I play this note, that's in this chord C. Well, how about if I choose some of the notes around it that are in that C chord? Oh, nice little phrase. Sure. Next chord is an F minor, and we went down to this note. Well, what note's in this little right around here are an F minor? So here's our first chord. Our next chord is back to C. Ooh, we're not playing a C, but it doesn't matter. We're in this chord C. Then it goes to B flat minor, E flat, A flat. So how about just an A flat chord? Let's do that right there. I'll call them out. C major. Here's the chord. F minor. C major. Ooh, here's that B flat minor. Going to C, A flat major. Now this is going to take some time. One good way to start is simply by start with the arpeggios. They don't sound so melodic. They end up sounding a little more, arpeggiated and exercise, but it's a good way at least to learn them. Here's the notes in the C major. Next one goes to F minor. Then into B flat, C major, then B flat minor, E flat, A flat major. Sure, I remember, oh God, that would have been about 1974 for me, 73, 74, when I started going, I need to know these notes to the chords. So I just started working on them like that. And then you work on them starting on the third, work on them starting on the fifth, work on them starting on the seventh. You just learn them and learn them and learn them. Then the real trick to start making music is start working with your ear and leaving them out, meaning all the notes. Just use some of them. Let me illustrate what I just did, but I'll only use some of the notes. There's that D7. There's that D minor. I tell you, I've done this for a lot of years, and it just seems so simple for me. But what I mean by that is I've worked on it and studied this instrument and looked at this bass. If you're not willing to practice daily, really hard, and I'm not talking about a physical endurance here. While that's a good thing to do, here I'm talking about fingerboard knowledge, learning your scales, learning your chords, learning your arpeggios, learning to spell the chords, maybe even where some of those tension notes are on the chord. You're just not going to be a jazz player. There's a few people I've met who their ears are such as they can just absorb it. Most of us, we have to study, and really listen to get those sounds in our ears. Let me play a little bit more now for you. And I don't want to say clarify. I know this is a big mouthful what I've taught you, but just examples. And maybe I'll try to talk it, or maybe not. Let's go back again, and I'll pick some different little guide tone examples to use. Yeah, you have to work with these. There's a lot of methodology, as I mentioned before. I want to encourage you to get real simple. I've done some lessons about some much more simpler concepts than this on the Real Bass Lessons here. Delve into those. Okay? I think what I want to say in closing here is that jazz seems like a foreign language. Well, maybe it is, but to you, from your background. But you know what? You can learn a foreign language. I did not come from a jazz background, but I listened to it and worked on my instrument. Again, I can't emphasize enough that you're going to have some master of this instrument before you're going to play jazz. But even if it's a foreign language, you can learn it if you want to. It's just challenging, I know. But it all starts with listening specifically to some small little sounds. Let's see if this sounds good. Oh, probably not. How about this one? Oh, there it is. See, our ears guide us. We just have to break the things down. Okay? Good luck. Keep it up.